Samuel Hale lay stone still beneath the quilt, his breath steady, his eyes shut tight, pretending to sleep. He felt her kneel beside the bed. He felt her small, trembling hands fold. And then, the runaway cook he'd hired 6 weeks earlier began to whisper a prayer he was never meant to hear, a prayer that split him open in the dark and named him in a way no living soul had named him in 11 years. Wherever you're watching from across America, tell me your city in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and stay with me all the way to the final word. Samuel Hale hurled the crystal tumbler against the stone hearth and watched it shatter into 1,000 worthless pieces. 40,000 acres, he said aloud to no one. 3,000 head of cattle. A house built for 12, and not one soul to ask if I've had my supper. The fire popped. The clock on the mantel ticked. Outside, a Texas wind scraped at the shutters of a mansion that had forgotten the sound of voices. Samuel sank into the leather chair his father had sat in and his father's father before him, and he pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes until he saw stars. He was 34 years old. By every paper in Wheeler County, he was the richest unmarried man within a 2-day ride, and he had never in his life felt smaller. The knock at the front door came so soft, he thought at first he had imagined it. Dutch's voice followed careful through the oak. "Boss, you awake?" "Always." "There's a woman." Samuel lifted his head. "There's a what now?" "A woman, Samuel, at the gate. Walked here, looks like. Clean shoes, so she ain't come from too far, but there's blood on her sleeve and she won't say her name." "Send her away, Dutch." "I tried." "Try harder." Dutch didn't answer. Samuel heard him shift on the porch boards. "Dutch." "She ain't got nowhere, Samuel. She's shaken. Not crying, just shaken." Samuel stood in the dark of his own parlor and thought about the 11 empty bedrooms above his head, and the long dining table where he took his meals alone, and the clock that had been ticking in a house full of nothing since the spring of 1872. "Bring her in," he said. "You sure?" "I said bring her in." Dutch opened the door and she stepped inside. She was small. That was the first thing. Small and fair, with dark hair pinned up under a bonnet that had seen better weather and a plain brown dress that had been mended at the elbow by hands that knew their business. Her eyes would not meet his. They studied the hem of his boots, the floorboards, the brass fittings of the lamp on the side table. She would not look up. "Evening, ma'am." "Evening, sir." "My foreman tells me you're looking for work." "Yes, sir." "What's your name?" She hesitated. He watched her throat move. "Lillian." "Lillian what?" "Voss, sir." "That your real name?" Her eyes flicked up for the briefest instant, and he saw in them something he recognized from the face of a mare he had once bought off a drunk in Amarillo. Not fear exactly. Fear was a loud thing. This was the quiet cousin of fear, the one that had lived in a body long enough to make itself at home. "Yes, sir," she said. "It is." He didn't believe her. He nodded anyway. "Miss Voss, you ever cooked for a ranch of 30 hands?" "No, sir." "You ever cooked at all?" "I can cook, sir. I can cook very well." "For who?" A pause. "My father, sir, and my family." "Where's your family now?" She did not answer. Her hands folded in front of her apron tightened around each other until the knuckles went white. Samuel looked at Dutch. Dutch looked at the floor. "Dutch, go on out and see to the horses." "Boss." "Go on now." Dutch tipped his hat to Lillian, which was a thing Dutch almost never did to strangers, and he left them in the parlor with the ticking clock and the broken glass on the hearth. Samuel waited until the front door shut. Then he pulled a chair out from the small card table by the window. "Sit down, Miss Voss." "I'd rather stand, sir, if it's all the same." "It ain't all the same. Sit." She sat. She sat the way a bird sits on a branch it intends to leave at the first sound, perched, ready. "I ain't gonna ask you again where your family is," Samuel said. "I figure if you wanted to tell me you would, but I will ask you this, and I will ask it only once. Is there somebody looking for you?" She did not answer. Miss Voss, I got 40,000 acres and 100 miles of fence line, and I do not need trouble riding up my road in the middle of the night. So I will ask you plain. Is somebody looking for you? I don't know, sir. You don't know. I don't know if he's looking. I know he'd find me if he tried. Samuel leaned back. The chair creaked under him. And who is he? Nobody you'd know, sir. Try me. A man from Amarillo. Husband. No, sir. Kinshare. No, sir. Then what? Her jaw set. For the first time since she had walked in, she looked him full in the face. He was to be sir, a husband. That was the arrangement. My father made it with his father when I was 16 years old, and I did not object because I did not know then what I know now. And 3 nights ago I left. I left through a window with what I'm wearing, and I walked. And if you tell me to go, sir, I'll go and I'll walk some more. But I am asking you plain, as I know how to ask, if you would let me work. I don't need wages till you've decided whether I'm worth them. I don't need a room in the house. I'll sleep in the kitchen by the stove. I'll cook. I'll clean. I'll mend. I won't speak unless spoken to. I won't be trouble. I swear on my mother's grave, sir, I won't be trouble. Samuel Hale looked at this small, fair-skinned woman in a borrowed bonnet, and something shifted in his chest that he did not expect and did not know what to do with. What's his name? He said. Sir. The man from Amarillo. Name. Why, sir? Because if he comes onto my land, I want to know who to shoot first and ask questions after. She stared at him. Then very slowly, a breath came out of her that seemed to have been held since she was 16 years old. Garrett, sir, James Garrett. Garrett. Samuel said the name once to settle it in his memory. All right, Miss Voss. I will take you on for 30 days. You will cook and you will clean, and you will be paid at the end of 30 days, same as every hand on this ranch. You will sleep in the room off the kitchen, not on the floor beside the stove, because I am not an animal, and I do not keep women on floors. You will not be bothered by any man on this property, and if any man bothers you, you come to me and I will see to it. Are we understood? Yes, sir. One more thing. Yes, sir. If James Garrett rides up my road, you will not open a door. You will not step onto a porch. You will not so much as look out a window. You will find Dutch or you will find me, and you will let us handle it. Are we understood? Her eyes filled. She did not let the tears fall. She was not, Samuel realized, a woman who let things fall. Yes, sir. Good. He stood up. The kitchen's through that door. There's a room off it with a bed and a lamp and a wash basin. You'll find sheets in the linen press. There's cold ham and bread in the pantry if you're hungry, though I'd wager you've forgot what hungry feels like. He paused. There's a bolt on that door, Miss Voss. You are welcome to use it. Every night. Against me if that's what lets you sleep. I take no offense. She stared at him a long moment. Thank you, sir. It's Samuel. Sir. My name. It's Samuel. Mr. Hale was my father and he's been buried 11 years. You'll hear the hands call me boss. You call me Samuel. Yes. She caught herself. Samuel. Go on to bed, Miss Voss. Lillian, sir. Lillian, go on. She rose. She walked toward the kitchen door with the same quiet, measured step she had come in with, like a woman who had spent her whole life trying not to wake somebody. At the threshold, she stopped. Samuel. Ma'am. The glass. On the hearth. I'll sweep it up in the morning. Leave it. It'll cut somebody's foot. Nobody walks in this parlor in their bare feet, but me and I broke it. If my foot gets cut, I reckon I earned it. She did not smile. But something in her face softened, just at the edge, just for an instant. Good night, Samuel. Good night, Lillian. She closed the kitchen door behind her. Samuel Hale sat back down in his father's leather chair and stared at the broken crystal on the hearth and at the clock on the mantel that had been ticking for 41 years without stop. And he thought about how his mother used to hum while she worked in the kitchen, and how nobody had hummed in that kitchen since the spring of 1872. He thought about a woman with blood on her sleeve who would not meet his eyes, and about a name she had said out loud for the first time in 3 days, and about the bolt on the inside of the kitchen room door. He did not sleep that night. He sat in the chair until the dawn came gray across the Texas grass, and then he rose and he walked out onto the porch, and he waited for Dutch. Dutch came up the steps with his hat in his hand. "You were supposed to be asleep, boss." "I was supposed to be a lot of things, Dutch." "She settled in all right." "She did." "What'd you decide?" 30 days. Same wage as any hand. Room off the kitchen. And nobody touches her, Dutch. Nobody so much as tips a hat too friendly." "Understood." "There's a man." "Figured." "James Garrett, out of Amarillo. You know the name?" Dutch went still the way a man goes still when he has heard something he wishes he had not heard. "Dutch." "I know it." "Tell me." "Garretts own about half the cattle between Amarillo and the Canadian. The old man, Colonel Garrett, he come back from the war, with more money than sense, and his boys come up mean. James is the oldest. He's Samuel. He's the kind of man who don't hear the word no. He's gonna hear it now. Samuel. He's gonna hear it now, Dutch." Dutch nodded slowly. He looked out over the pasture where the early sun was turning the grass from gray to gold. "What do you want me to do, boss?" "I want 2 men on the north gate day and night startin' this mornin'. I want Cookie moved into the bunkhouse permanent, so the only soul in that main house besides me is her. And I want you to ride to Mobeetie and send a wire to Judge Parker in Fort Smith." "Judge Parker? That's a hell of a wire to send over a runaway cook." "She ain't a runaway cook, Dutch." "No, she's a woman. She's a woman who walked 3 days through Texas with blood on her sleeve, and she did not cry once in my parlor, not even when I told her she could use the bolt against me. She's a woman, and on my ranch a woman is not a thing that runs away. She's a soul that gets home." Dutch took a long breath. He tipped his hat back on his head the way he did when he was about to say something he had been chewing on for a while. "You been alone up in this house a long time, Samuel? I know it. I ain't sayin' don't help her. I know what you ain't sayin'. I'm sayin' watch your heart, son, that's all. I knew your daddy. I knew your mama. I have watched you rattle around inside these walls like a dime in a tin can for 11 years, and I am glad, Samuel. I am glad there is a woman hummin' in your kitchen again. But you don't know her yet, and she don't know you. And a man's heart, when it's been alone that long, it'll mistake a kindness for a vow." Samuel looked at him. "Noted, Dutch. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll let you say." Dutch grinned the first grin Samuel had seen on his face in a week. "Yes, boss." "Get the men on the gate." "Yes, boss." And Dutch. "Boss, if James Garrett sets foot on Hale land, you do not ask him his business. You do not ask him his name. You put him back on his horse. You turn that horse around, you slap its rump. And if he comes back a second time, you come get me. And if he comes back a third, then he won't be coming back a fourth." Dutch touched his hat and went down the steps. Samuel stood on his porch and watched the sun climb out of the eastern grass, and for the first time in 11 years, he heard faint through the open window of the kitchen behind him the sound of a woman humming. It was a hymn. He knew it. His mother had hummed it on washing days. He closed his eyes and he listened, and he did not trust himself to move. By the time he walked back inside, the coffee pot was already hot on the stove, and there was a plate of biscuits under a clean cloth, and there was no sign of her except for an apron hung on a peg that had not hung anything in 11 years. "Miss Voss." Her voice came from the pantry. "In here, Samuel." "You been up long?" "Since 4, sir." "Samuel." "Samuel." He ducked his head through the pantry door. She was on a stool he did not remember owning, reaching up to the high shelf where his mother had kept the canning jars. The shelf was gray with dust. It had been gray with dust for 11 years. "What are you doing, Lillian?" "I thought I'd take stock, sir." "Samuel." "I thought I'd take stock so I'd know what to make of supper. You've got 3 kinds of flour up here, and none of 'em is fit to feed a dog. When did your last cook quit?" 11 years ago." She stopped moving on the stool. She looked down at him over her shoulder. 11 years. My mama cooked for me till the fever took her in 72. I ain't had a woman in this kitchen since. You been eatin' out of a bunkhouse pot for 11 years. I been eatin'. She climbed down off the stool. She wiped her hands on the apron. She was looking at him in a different way now, a way she had not looked at him the night before. It was not pity. Samuel Hale could not abide pity, and he would not have tolerated it in his own kitchen. It was something else. Something closer to recognition. I'll make a list, Samuel, of what I'll need from the dry goods in Mobidi. If you'll have your man ride in today, you'll have supper fit for a Christian by sundown tomorrow. Dutch is riding in today. Good. Miss Voss. Samuel. You eat yet? I'll eat when my work's done, sir. Your work's done when I say it is. Sit down. Samuel. Sit. She sat at the small kitchen table, where Samuel had not sat in 11 years. He took 2 biscuits from under the cloth, and he put one on a plate in front of her, and he poured her coffee from the pot she had boiled. He set the cup in front of her. He sat across from her. She did not pick up the biscuit. Lillian? I am not used to being fed, sir. I am used to doing the feedin'. You're on my ranch now, and on my ranch a body eats breakfast before she takes stock of the pantry. Eat. She picked up the biscuit. She took a small bite. She chewed it slowly, as if she had forgotten what food tasted like, or as if she was afraid that if she ate it too fast, it might be taken away. Samuel looked down at his own plate, so he would not have to watch her. These are better than mine, he said. You made these. I made what's under the cloth. You warmed 'em. No, sir, I threw yours out. These are mine. I started 'em at 4. He laughed. It came out of him before he knew it was coming. A short, rough sound that he had not made in a long time. He heard it as if from a great distance, and it sounded to his own ear like a man who was not quite dead yet. Lillian Voss did not laugh. But she looked at him across the kitchen table, and for just a moment she looked at him. Not at his boots, not at the floor, at him. Then she looked down. I'll get to the stock list, Samuel. Go on. She rose. She took her plate with her. At the pantry door she stopped. Samuel. Ma'am. If a rider comes up the road today, from the east, on a black horse with a white blaze, will you tell me? I'll tell you. Thank you. Lillian. Samuel. Ain't no rider gonna come up that road today. And if he does, he will not leave on his own horse, and he will not leave on his own feet, and he will not set eyes on this house, because he will not get past the gate. You hear me? She stood very still in the pantry doorway. Her back was to him. He saw her shoulders rise and fall once. I hear you, Samuel. Go on. She went on. Samuel sat at his mother's kitchen table, and he looked at the empty chair across from him, and he thought about a woman who had not eaten in 3 days, and about a man named James Garrett, who did not hear the word no, and about the long, quiet ticking of the clock in the parlor that had been keeping time for him and nobody else for 11 years. He stood. He buckled on his gun belt. He walked out to the porch to wait for Dutch, and somewhere behind him, through the open pantry door, he heard a woman humming a hymn his mother had hummed, and he did not trust himself to turn around and listen. Dutch rode out of Mobidi with a saddlebag full of dry goods and a letter folded twice inside his vest pocket, and he did not push his horse, because the thing he had to tell Samuel Hale was not a thing a man hurried toward. He rode up the north road a little past 2 in the afternoon. Lillian was on the porch beating the dust out of a rug that had not been beaten in 11 years. She heard the hoofbeats before she saw him, and her body went still in a way that Dutch from 100 yards off could read like a weather sign. It's only me, ma'am. She did not answer. She went on beating the rug. But Dutch saw how her eyes tracked him all the way up the drive and how her right hand kept a little too close to the corner of her apron, where something small and hard was stitched into the hem. A knife. Dutch had been a lawman long enough to know a woman with a knife sewn into her apron when he saw one. Boss around, in the barn, sir. Sir is Dutch. Dutch. That's better, ma'am. Lillian. That's better still. He went around to the barn. Samuel was in the last stall with a bay gelding running a brush down its flank the way a man does when he is trying to think himself calm. Dutch. Boss. You sent the wire? I sent it. And Dutch pulled the letter out of his vest pocket. Parker wired back before I left. He knows the Garrett name. He said, and these were his words. Samuel, he said, James Garrett is a man the federal court has been watching for 2 years and cannot lay a glove on because every witness who might speak against him has either died married into the family or left the territory. Samuel set down the brush. What kind of deaths? The kind that don't ever look like murder. How many? 3 that he'd put the name to. A foreman who quit in '85, a ranch hand's wife who was set to testify about something she saw, and a preacher in Tascosa who told Garrett to his face he would not marry him to a girl who wept all the way down the aisle. Samuel Hale went very still. Dutch watched him. The girl in the aisle, Dutch. I asked. She was 16. It wasn't our Miss Voss, it was another one. She ran the night before the wedding. She made it as far as the Canadian River. And then she didn't. Samuel closed his eyes. Boss, Dutch said, there's more. Tell me. I stopped at the dry goods to fill her list. Clem behind the counter asked me who I was buying flour for. I said my own self. He said I'd never bought flour in my life and I'd better pick a better story. So I told him a piece of the truth. I said we got a cook on now, a woman. And he said, quiet as a mouse, he said, Dutch, a man, come through here yesterday asking after a small dark-haired woman who might be traveling alone. Clem did not give him any answer. But the man was polite Dutch. And he was wearing a silver ring with the letter G cut into it. Samuel opened his eyes. He's already in the county. He's already in the county. How far? A day, maybe less. Samuel stepped out of the stall. He walked past Dutch without a word out of the barn across the yard up onto the porch. Lillian was shaking the rug over the rail. She turned when she heard his boots. Samuel, Dutch brought the flour. Lillian. She saw his face and the rug slid from her hands and fell in a heap at her feet. He's here. He's in the county. God in heaven. Lillian, I need you to go inside, and I need you to go up the stairs, and I need you to go into the room at the end of the hall, the one with the blue curtains. You bolt that door. You do not come out for anyone but me or Dutch. Do you hear me? Samuel, I cannot let you. I ain't asking you, Lillian. I'm telling you, move. She moved. He watched her go up the stairs. He waited until he heard the bolt. Then he turned around to Dutch, who had come up onto the porch behind him. 6 men on the north gate. 6 more on the south. I want every hand on this ranch armed by sundown. I want the dogs loose in the yard. And I want you, Dutch, in this house on the first floor with a rifle across your knees until I come back. Where you going, boss? I'm going to Mobeetie. Samuel, a man with a silver G-ring, asked a polite question in Clem's store yesterday. I am going to go ask him a polite question back. He'll have men with him. Most likely. He'll know your face before you know his. Most likely. Samuel, listen to me. If you ride into town today and you put a hand on James Garrett, you will hang for it. His daddy owns 3 judges between here and Austin. Then I won't put a hand on him. I'll put words on him. And I will tell him to his face that the woman he is hunting is under the protection of Samuel Hale, and that the next time a man wearing a silver G-ring comes within a mile of her, he will be shot off his horse before he knows he's been seen. And then we'll see what kind of man James Garrett is. Dutch looked at him a long moment. Then he nodded once. I'll saddle Remington. No, I'll ride the gray mare. She don't spook. And Dutch. Boss, if I am not back by sundown tomorrow, you put Lillian in the root cellar, and you burn the main house to the ground, and you take her to my sister in San Antonio. You do not wait. You do not send a rider first. You do it. Dutch's jaw worked. Boss, that's your daddy's house. It's a house, Dutch. She's a woman. You know which one I'd choose. Yes, boss. Samuel went upstairs. He knocked on the blue door. Lillian, it's me. The bolt slid. She opened the door a crack. Her face was white. "You are not going to Amarillo." "I ain't going to Amarillo. I'm going to Mobidi." "He's in Mobidi." "One of his men is. Maybe him." "Samuel. Samuel, listen to me. You do not know him. You think you know men like him because you've read about them in the paper, but you have never met a man who does not hear the word, 'No, Samuel,' and I have lived with one for 6 years, and I am telling you, Lillian, I am telling you, do not go. Send Dutch. Send a wire. Send anybody but yourself, because the moment he sees your face and he knows your name, he will not rest until he has taken something from you, and I have nothing left to lose but you. Samuel, do you hear me? I have nothing left to lose but you." The words came out of her so fast that she did not seem to have heard them herself until they were in the air between them. She went still. Her hand came up to her mouth. Samuel stood in the hallway and did not move. "Lillian. I did not mean, Lillian. I did not mean to say that, sir. I do not have a right to say that." "You have every right." "Samuel. Bolt the door." "Samuel, please." "Bolt the door, Lillian. I will be back by tomorrow sundown. I am not a man men take things from. I am a man who takes things back. Bolt the door." She bolted the door. He stood on the other side of it for 3 breaths. Then he went down the stairs and he buckled on the second pistol he had not worn in 4 years, and he rode the gray mare out the north gate at a hard trot. Lillian sat on the floor of the blue room with her back against the door, and she held the small knife sewn into her apron hem, and she did not weep. She had not wept in 3 years. She had forgotten how. She stared at the blue curtains her fingertips had dusted that morning, and she prayed silently without moving her lips, the way a woman prays when she has learned that a man hears better than she wants him to. She prayed for Samuel Hale, and she prayed the words she had said to him. "I have nothing left to lose," but you had not been a lie, because if they had been a lie, then she was a worse woman than James Garrett had always told her she was. And if they had been the truth, then she had just given a stranger her whole life for the second time in 6 years, and this time it was for keeps. Downstairs, Dutch sat in the parlor with a Winchester across his knees. He did not put the rifle down. He did not take his eyes off the road. And every few minutes, without moving his head, he glanced at the ceiling above him, where the woman Samuel Hale had ridden to war for was breathing quiet and scared in a room with blue curtains. Night came. Samuel did not come back. At 9 o'clock, Dutch stood up. He walked to the foot of the stairs, and he called up in a voice pitched for a woman to hear. "Miss Lillian." "Dutch." "You hungry, ma'am?" "No, Dutch." "You thirsty?" "No, Dutch." "You scared?" A long pause. "Yes, Dutch." "Come on down, ma'am. I'll sit with you in the kitchen." A scared woman ought not to be alone in a room with the door bolted. That's how a body gets to feeling she's already dead. She came down. She came down in her dress and her apron, and she sat at the kitchen table across from Dutch, and he set the rifle across the table between them like a fence between 2 neighbors. "Dutch." "Ma'am?" "Has he done this before?" "Done what, ma'am?" "Gone out. For a woman." Dutch considered. He took off his hat and set it crown down on the table. "No, ma'am, he has not." "Then why?" Dutch did not answer for a while. He reached out and turned his hat a quarter turn on the table, and then a quarter turn back. "Miss Lillian, I have known Samuel Hale since he was a boy of 12, bringing water to his daddy's cow camp in a bucket bigger than he was. I watched him bury his mama in the spring of 72. I watched him bury his daddy in the winter of 78. I have watched him sit alone in that parlor for 11 years and eat alone at that table and walk his land alone from sunup to sundown. And the only thing I have ever heard him pray for, ma'am, and I am a man who does not tell another man's prayers. So you will hear this once and then never again. The only thing I have ever heard Samuel Hale pray for is that a soul would come up his road who needed him more than he needed himself." Lillian stared at him. "And then you come up the road, ma'am." "Dutch." "That's all I'll say." Dutch, I am a woman with a price on her head, and a man who thinks he owns her, and a father in a grave who sold me for a herd of cattle, and I am not an answer to any man's prayer. Ma'am, I am not. Ma'am, with respect, that ain't for you to decide, and it ain't for me to decide, and it ain't even forgive me for Samuel to decide. That's the Lord's decidin', and the Lord does not ask our permission. She looked at him. Outside, a horse came up the road. Dutch had the Winchester in his hands before the hoofbeats were close enough to count. Lillian stood up so fast her chair went over backward. "Stay behind me." "Dutch, behind me, ma'am." He walked to the front door. He opened it 3 inches. He looked out. Then he closed the door, and he leaned his forehead against it, and he said very quietly, "Thank you, Jesus." "Dutch!" "It's him." Samuel came up the porch steps. His shirt was torn at the shoulder, and there was blood on his sleeve. But it was not his blood, and Lillian saw that, and she saw his face, and she understood before he said a word. "Samuel." "Lillian, are you hurt?" "I ain't hurt." "Is he?" "He is not dead. He is in the Mobidi jail. I put him there myself. He will be out by noon tomorrow because his daddy owns 3 judges between here and Austin, and by sundown tomorrow he will be on this road, and he will be bringing men." "How many?" "I don't know. 10, 12, enough." She put her hands to her face. "Lillian, look at me." She looked at him. "I spoke to him. I spoke to him across the bars of that cell, and I told him your name, and I told him you were on my ranch, and I told him he would have to come through me to get to you, and he smiled at me." "Lillian?" He smiled like a man who has been waiting his whole life for another man to say those words. And he said to me, he said, "Mr. Hale, I will buy your ranch from your widow for $1 an acre," and she said it while you watched. Lillian's hand went to her throat. "He said that. He said that." Oh God. "Lillian, I did not ride back here to hide you. I rode back here to tell you something, and I would be obliged if you would hear me say it without looking at the floor." Samuel. "Look at me, Lillian." She looked at him. "In this house you are not a cook. In this house you are not a woman running. In this house you are the soul that came up the road when I had asked for one, and I will not hand you back to that man for $1 an acre or $10,000 an acre or every acre in Texas. Do you hear what I am telling you?" "Samuel, he will kill you." "Do you hear what I am telling you?" "Samuel." "Do you hear me, Lillian?" Her mouth trembled. She made a sound that was not a word. "I hear you. Good." He walked past her. He walked past Dutch. He went to the gun cabinet in the hall, and he unlocked it with a key he wore on a chain around his neck, and he took down a long gun that had belonged to his father, and he laid it on the kitchen table beside Dutch's Winchester. "Dutch." "Boss, ride to the bunkhouse. Wake every man. I want every hand on this ranch in this kitchen in a quarter of an hour. I want them armed. I want them sober. And I want them to understand before they walk in that door that any man who is not willing to stand for a woman tomorrow against James Garrett can draw his wages tonight, and no hard feelings, but he will draw them tonight and he will be off my land by dawn." "Yes, boss." "Go on." Dutch went. Samuel turned to Lillian. She was still standing in the middle of the kitchen with her hands at her throat. "Lillian." "Samuel." "Sit down." She sat. He sat across from her. He reached across the table slow the way a man reaches toward a mare that has been beaten, and he laid his hand palm up between them. He did not touch her. He laid his hand there open, and he waited. She looked at his hand a long time. She did not put her hand in his, but she reached out very slowly, and she laid her fingertips on the inside of his wrist where the pulse was, and she left them there for the count of 3, and then she took them away. Samuel Hale. "Ma'am?" "If we live through tomorrow." "If we live through tomorrow." "I will tell you a thing about myself that I have told no living soul, and you will decide then if you still want a soul up your road." "Lillian, do you agree?" "I agree." "Then go and meet your men." He stood. He picked up his father's long gun off the kitchen table. At the door to the hall, he stopped, and he did not turn around, and he said in a voice that was not quite steady, "Lillian Voss, the thing you said to me at the blue door, about having nothing left to lose but me." Samuel. Was that the truth? She sat at the kitchen table with her fingertips still warm from the pulse in his wrist, and she closed her eyes, and she said the only word she had left in her. Yes. He did not turn around. He walked down the hall and out onto the porch and into the yard where his men were already beginning to gather in the dark. The men came, 16 of them counting Dutch. They came in their shirt sleeves and their boots and their pistols, and they stood in a half circle inside Samuel Hale's kitchen, and they waited. Samuel did not waste words. "A man named James Garrett will ride up this road tomorrow. He will bring 10 men, maybe 12, maybe more. He is coming for the woman who has been cooking your suppers for 6 weeks. She does not want to go with him. She will not be made to go with him. Not while I draw breath on this land. Not while any man in this room draws breath on this land. Any of you who cannot stand to that, I have your wages ready in my desk drawer. No hard feelings, no questions. You ride out tonight." Nobody moved. Then one man stepped forward, a thin hand named Hollis, the one Samuel had never quite taken to the one who laughed too loud and drank too much. "Boss, I got a wife and 2 babies in Canadian." "I know you do, Hollis." "I can't." "I know. Go on." Hollis looked at the floor. "I'm sorry, boss." "Don't be sorry. Be alive. Go on." Hollis left. He went out the back door with his hat in his hand, and he did not look at any of the other men. And no man in that kitchen said a word against him, and Samuel was glad of it, because a man who rides out to protect his own babies is a man doing the Lord's work even when it looks like running. Samuel turned back to the 15 men who were left. "Any other man?" Nobody moved. "All right. Dutch has your posts. Eat something. Sleep if you can. I want every man on his feet by 4. They filed out. Dutch was the last to leave. He stopped in the doorway. "Samuel." "Dutch?" "She's still at the table." "I know." "You gonna be all right?" "I'm gonna have to be." Dutch went. Samuel stood alone in his kitchen with Lillian at the table, and he did not sit. He picked up his father's long gun, and he set it across his shoulder, and he looked at her a long moment. "Lillian." "Samuel." "Go on up to bed." "I cannot sleep, Samuel." "Neither can I, but you will try, and I will try. And in the morning, we will do what needs to be done, and we will do it with steady hands, because steady hands is all we got." "Samuel." "Ma'am." "I cannot be in that blue room alone tonight." He looked at her. "Lillian, I am not asking what you think I am asking. I am asking to sit in a chair in the hall outside your door. I am asking to hear a man breathe. I have not heard a man breathe through a wall in 6 years without being afraid of what would happen when the breathing stopped, and I am asking you, Samuel, for one night to let me hear a man breathe who I am not afraid of." Samuel was quiet a long time. "There's a chair in the hall," he said. "I put it there myself when my mama was sick so I could sit through the night. It's still there. Bring a quilt." "Thank you, Samuel." "Don't thank me, Lillian. Just come up when you're ready." He went up the stairs. He heard her a minute later carrying the chair from the hall, setting it down outside his door. He heard her sit. He heard the small rustle of the quilt. He lay down in his clothes boots on pistol on the bedside table, long gun across the foot of the bed, and he closed his eyes, and he did not sleep. A long time passed. Then he heard the handle of his door turn. He did not move. He kept his breathing slow. He kept his eyes closed. He heard her come into the room in her stocking feet, soft as a cat on a rug. And he heard her stop at the foot of the bed, and he heard her breath catch, once the way a woman's breath catches when she is about to do a thing she has thought about doing, and has not until this moment been brave enough to do. She knelt. She knelt at the side of his bed in the dark. He felt her. Not her hand. Her nearness. The small heat of a body close to his in a house that had not had a body close to his body in 11 years. Then her hands folded on the edge of the quilt. He felt the pressure of her folded hands through the blanket against his ribs. And then so quiet he had to strain to catch it, she began to speak. Lord. A long breath. Lord, I do not know if you are listening to me. I have not been a woman. You have had much reason to listen to. I have lied, and I have run, and I have taken what was not mine, and I have sewed a knife into my apron that I would have put in a man's throat without asking your leave. Her voice caught. She did not stop. But Lord, there is a man asleep in this bed who I did not mean to care for. I came up his road for work, and he gave me a room, and he gave me a name, and he gave me a bolt on the inside of a door, and he told me I was welcome to use it against him. Lord, and I have lived 31 years, and no man has ever said that to me, that a door could be bolted against him, and he would take no offense. Samuel Hale lay in the dark, and he did not breathe. He is going to fight a man for me tomorrow, Lord. He is going to fight a man who will kill him if he can. And he is going to fight him, because I came up his road with blood on my sleeve, and I do not. Lord, I do not think I am worth a man like him dying over. Her voice broke. So I am asking you if it is your will to let him see the morning, let him see the noon, let him stand on his porch again and look out at his grass, and let him see, Lord, just once, let him see his own self the way I have come to see him. Not as a man with 40,000 acres, not as a man with 3,000 head, as a man, as a soul, as a good and lonely man who has been waiting his whole life for somebody to walk up his road and see him plain. Her hand moved. She laid her palm just for an instant flat on the blanket over his heart. And Lord, if it is your will that one of us does not see the morning, let it be me. Let it be me. I have had my share of mornings, Lord, and most of them have not been kind, and I can spare a few. Samuel Hale has been owed a morning for 11 years. Let him have it. Amen. She took her hand away. She rose. She did not make a sound. She went back out of the room in her stocking feet, and she closed the door behind her with a click so soft that a sleeping man would not have heard it. Samuel Hale lay in the dark of his own bed, with his eyes shut and his fists clenched in the sheets, and for the first time in 11 years, Samuel Hale wept. He wept without sound, because a man does not wake a woman who has just given her life away in prayer. He wept into the quilt until the quilt was wet under his face. He wept for his mother and for his father, and for 11 years of a house with a ticking clock. And he wept for a small fair-skinned woman in a hall chair outside his door who had just asked God to take her first. When he had finished, he opened his eyes. The sky through his window was still black, but there was a thinness to the black that told a man who had watched 1,000 dawns that a dawn was coming. He got up. He went to the door. He opened it. She was in the chair with the quilt pulled up under her chin and her eyes open. Lillian. Samuel. Come downstairs. Samuel, it's not yet 4. Come downstairs. She came. He sat her at the kitchen table. He lit the lamp with hands that he was proud of because they did not shake. He poured her a cup of coffee from the pot that Dutch had left warm on the stove. He sat across from her. Lillian. Samuel. I heard you. She went white. Samuel. I heard every word. I was not asleep. I want you to know that. Before this day gets to where it is going, I want you to know that I was not asleep, and I heard every word. Her hand was at her throat again. He saw it trembling. Samuel. I did not mean. You meant it. Don't walk it back now. You meant every word, and so did I when I said what I said to you in that hall, that you are the soul that come up my road when I asked for one, and a man does not unhear a prayer like that, Lillian, and a man does not want to. Samuel. Now I am going to say a thing to you, and you are going to let me say it, because if this day goes bad, I will not get to say it twice. Samuel, please. Lillian Voss. If we live through today, I do not want a cook. I do not want a housekeeper. I do not want a woman who sleeps in a room off my kitchen with a bolt on the door. I want a wife. I want you, Lillian. I have wanted you from the night you walked into my parlor and would not meet my eye. And I did not know it was that till you knelt at my bed and prayed the Lord to take you first, and now I know it, and I will not die tomorrow or the day after or in 40 years with that word unspoken between us. Do you hear me? Tears were running down her face. She did not wipe them. Samuel. Do you hear me, Lillian? I hear you. You do not have to answer me. I do not want an answer from a woman who has been running for 3 days and praying all night. I want you to hear me, and I want you to carry it into whatever comes today, and when today is done, you will tell me yes or you will tell me no, and I will honor whichever one you say." She reached across the table. She took his hand. She did not lay her fingertips against his pulse this time. She put her whole hand in his small and cold and shaking, and she held on. "Samuel." "Ma'am." "There is a thing I have to tell you." "Tell me." "I did not just run from him, Samuel." "Tell me." "I took something." Samuel's hand went still around hers. "What did you take?" "A book, a ledger book, from his daddy's office in Amarillo. I took it the night I ran." "A ledger book. I kept his father's books, Samuel, for 2 years, from the time I was engaged to him. Old Colonel Garrett could not read numbers the way he used to, and James did not trust a man to see his father's accounts, but he trusted a girl who could not run. So I kept the books. And in those books, Samuel, are the names of every man the Garretts have paid off in 4 counties. Judges, sheriffs, the land agent in Tascosa, the assayer in Canadian. I took the book, Samuel. I took it, and I hid it, and I ran. And the reason James Garrett is not coming here tomorrow for a runaway fiancé, Samuel, is because James Garrett is coming here tomorrow for that book." Samuel sat very still. "Lillian, I am sorry I did not tell you. I was afraid you would put me back on the road." "Lillian, where is the book?" "It is safe." "Where is the book?" "If I tell you, Samuel, and they take you and they hurt you, you will tell them. Every man tells them. I have watched every man tell them. I am not going to let you be another man who tells them because of me. The book is safe. When this is over, if we are alive, I will put it in your hand, and I will put it in the hand of a federal marshal, and the Garretts will hang in a federal courtroom in Fort Smith for what is written in it. But until then, Samuel Hale, you do not know where it is, and you will not know where it is, and that is how I keep you alive today." Samuel looked at her a long moment. Then very slowly, he lifted her hand to his mouth, and he kissed the backs of her fingers one small cold knuckle at a time. "All right, Lillian. All right. All right. You hold your book. I hold my ranch. We stand at the gate together at noon, and we see what James Garrett brought with him. Samuel?" "Ma'am?" "He did not bring guns." "What?" "Or he did. But he did not bring only guns. He brought a paper, Samuel. He will have a paper. I know him. He will have a piece of paper signed by a judge his daddy bought, and that paper will say that I am a thief who stole from his father's house, and that paper will say that any man who shelters me is an accessory to theft, and that paper will make it legal for him to ride onto your land with a sheriff at his side, and take me, Samuel, and take me lawful, and there will not be a thing you can do about it without hanging for it." Samuel stood up. He walked to the kitchen window. He looked out at the dark that was beginning to thin in the east. "A sheriff," he said. "Yes." "A sheriff and a paper." "Yes." He did not turn around. "Lillian, does that paper have your name on it?" "My name, and a list of what I took." "Does it list a ledger book?" She blinked. "No." "Why not?" "Because if James Garrett writes the words ledger book on a court document, he writes his own death warrant. He cannot put that book on a paper a judge will sign. He cannot tell his father what I took. He cannot tell the sheriff what he is chasing me for. He told them I took a necklace, Samuel. That is what the paper will say. A diamond necklace of his mother's worth $1,200. Did you take a necklace?" "No." Samuel turned around. He was smiling. It was a thin, hard smile, the smile of a man who has just seen a door he did not know was in the wall. "Lillian." "Samuel." "He cannot search you." "What?" "He cannot search you or this house for a ledger book, because the paper says he is looking for a necklace. If he finds a ledger book, he cannot name it. If he names it, he hangs. He will have to ride in here with a sheriff, take you lawful, and hope to find the book on your person or in your room. And if the book is not on your person and it is not in your room, he cannot tear this house apart without tipping his hand to the sheriff. Lillian. Samuel. Where is that book? Samuel. I am not asking you where it is. I am asking you, is it on this ranch? A long silence. No, Samuel. Where is it? It is with a woman in Mobiti, a widow. I gave it to her the night I walked through town. I told her if I was not back for it in 30 days, she was to take it to a federal marshal and say the name Lillian Voss. She will die before she gives it to a Garrett. I know her, Samuel. I have known her since I was a girl. Samuel Hale laughed. A real laugh, the laugh of a man who has been holding his breath for 6 weeks. Lillian Voss. Samuel. You are a smarter woman than any man James Garrett has ever met in his life. I had to be, Samuel. There was nothing else to be. He came across the kitchen. He knelt down beside her chair. He took both of her hands in both of his. Lillian, listen to me. I want you to go upstairs. I want you to put on your Sunday dress. I want you to come down those stairs when that sheriff rides up my road. And I want you to stand on my porch like a woman who has not done a thing wrong in her life. And I want you to let James Garrett look at you, and I want you to smile at him. Lillian, because he cannot touch you and he knows it, and the paper in his hand is made of nothing. Samuel. Yes, ma'am. What if I am wrong about the paper? Samuel looked up at her. His eyes were steady. Then we find out together, Lillian. Now go put on your Sunday dress. She stood. At the foot of the stairs, she stopped. She did not turn around. Samuel Hale. Ma'am? The answer is yes. He did not move. I will not ask you a second time, Lillian. I know you won't. That's why I'm answering you now. The answer is yes. Whatever comes up that road at noon, the answer is yes. She went up the stairs. Samuel Hale stayed on his knees on the kitchen floor a long time, with both of his empty hands still held together in front of him, as if he were the one who had just learned how to pray. Outside, far down the long north road, the dust of riders had already begun to rise against the gray of a Texas dawn. The dust came up the north road just before noon. Samuel Hale stood on the steps of his porch in a clean white shirt and his father's gun belt, and Lillian Voss stood beside him in a dark blue Sunday dress that had belonged to Samuel's mother, buttoned to the throat, and her small cold hand was not in his, because a woman does not stand on a porch holding a man's hand when she is being accused of theft in front of witnesses. But her shoulder was against his shoulder, and that was a thing neither of them was going to move. Dutch came up the steps from the yard rifle in the crook of his arm. 12 riders, boss. 2 ahead, 10 behind. Tell me about the 2 ahead. One's Garrett, one's wearing a star. Wheeler County. Potter. Samuel smiled the thin, hard smile again. Potter County. Yes, boss. 140 miles from here. Yes, boss. That is not a Sheriff Dutch. That is a man wearing a star in a county he has no business in. Let him come to the gate. Do not open the gate. I will come down. Boss? Do not open the gate, Dutch. Yes, boss. Samuel turned to Lillian. Lillian. Samuel. You stay on this porch. You do not come down to that gate. Not for me. Not for him. Not for the second coming of Jesus Christ. You hear me. I hear you. If shots are fired, you go inside. You bolt the door. You take the knife out of your apron. Samuel? Say it. I go inside. I bolt the door. I take the knife out of the apron. Good. He went down the steps. He crossed the yard. Behind him on the porch, Lillian stood with her hands folded against her skirt and her chin lifted in a way it had not been lifted in 6 years, because Samuel Hale had told her she was welcome on his porch, like a woman who had done no wrong in her life, and she had decided that she was going to stand there like one. At the gate, James Garrett drew up his horse. He was a good-looking man. Samuel had not expected that. He was tall and fair and dressed like a gentleman, and the silver G ring on his finger caught the light. The man beside him wore a Potter County star and had a face like a dog that had been kicked too often to bark at strangers. Mr. Hale? Mr. Garrett? I believe you have something that belongs to me. I got a lot of things, Mr. Garrett. You'll have to be more specific. A woman. I got a cook. Her name is Lillian Voss. Her name's her own, and she ain't a thing that belongs to anybody." Garrett smiled. It was the same smile Samuel had seen across the bars of the Mobeetie jail. "Mr. Hale, this is Sheriff Coe of Potter County. He has a warrant sworn out in Amarillo for the arrest of Miss Voss on a charge of grand larceny. The stolen property is a diamond necklace belonging to my mother, valued at $1,200. Sheriff Coe is here to execute that warrant. You will stand aside and open that gate." Sheriff Coe. "Hale. You got a warrant?" "I do." "From who?" "Judge Lorne of Potter County." "Potter County, 140 miles west. The warrant is lawful." "In Potter County?" Coe's face did not move. "Hale. Sheriff, you and I both know a Potter County warrant is paper in Wheeler County. You want to serve that warrant on my property, you ride into Mobeetie and you hand it to Sheriff Pickett, and Sheriff Pickett rides out here with you. Until then, that warrant is a letter from a stranger, and I do not open my gate to strangers." Garrett's jaw tightened. Samuel watched it tighten. He had been waiting for that. "Mr. Hale, I can ride to Mobeetie and fetch Sheriff Pickett. I can be back here by sundown." "Then ride, Mr. Garrett. Ride. In the meantime, you are harboring a fugitive." "In the meantime, I am feeding a cook." "Open the gate, Hale." "No." The 10 men behind Garrett shifted in their saddles. Samuel heard the small sound of 10 hands on 10 pistol grips. Dutch heard it too. Dutch did not move. Then from far down the north road, a second dust came up. A single rider. Samuel did not turn his head. He did not have to. He saw Garrett's eyes go past his shoulder, and he saw Garrett's eyes register the rider, and he saw something in Garrett's eyes that Samuel had been waiting to see all morning. He saw Garrett afraid. The rider came up the road at a long, easy trot. He was a big man on a big bay horse. He wore a gray coat and a flat-brimmed hat and a badge on his chest that caught the sun the way Garrett's silver ring did not. He drew up beside Sheriff Coe. He did not look at Coe. "Mr. Hale." "Yes, sir." "Deputy United States Marshal Elias Tate, out of Fort Smith. Judge Parker's compliments." Samuel nodded once. "Marshal." "Mr. Garrett." Garrett's face had gone the color of old milk. "Marshal Tate." "James, we've met." "We have. Twice as I recall. Once in Tascosa in '83, and once in Amarillo 2 years back. Both times on matters relating to your daddy's business. Marshal, this here is a county matter." "It is not a county matter, James. Not anymore. Judge Parker wired me 6 days ago on information received from Mr. Hale here. I have been riding since. I am federal. Sheriff Coe, that warrant of yours is superseded. Fold it up and put it away. I will be taking over this matter." Coe did not move. "Sheriff Coe, fold it up." Coe folded it up. "Now, Mr. Garrett." "Marshal." "I got a federal warrant for you too." Garrett's hand drifted toward his coat. "Do not," Tate said. "Do not, James. There are 10 men behind you and one of me, but I am federal, and every man behind you knows what happens to a man who draws on a federal marshal. Your daddy has lawyered you out of a lot of things. He will not lawyer you out of that one." The 10 men behind Garrett did not move. "What is the charge, Marshal?" "Mail fraud, land fraud, conspiracy, witness tampering, 3 counts of suspicion of murder, and I am asking nicely, James, for you to get down off that horse." Garrett did not get down off the horse. He looked at Samuel. "Mr. Hale." "Mr. Garrett." "You did this?" "I did." "You do not know what you have done." "I know exactly what I have done." "She is not what you think she is." "I know what she is. She is a thief. She is a woman. Hale, she was mine. She was never yours. You just didn't let her say so." And then the thing Samuel Hale had been watching for from the moment Garrett drew up at the gate happened. Garrett's hand went to his coat. Dutch fired first. He fired once from the porch rail, and he hit Garrett's right hand at the wrist, and Garrett's pistol came out of his coat and fell into the dirt without ever clearing the cloth. Garrett screamed. He made a sound Samuel had not thought a man like that could make, a high, thin animal sound, and he pulled his horse sideways, and he would have spurted into the gate had Marshal Tate not reached across calm as a schoolteacher and caught the bridle. "Easy, James. You shot me. He shot me. He shot your hand. James, and your hand had a gun in it, and a man on a porch defending a woman does not need my permission to shoot a hand with a gun in it. Easy." From the grass to the west of the gate, a rifle cracked. The bullet went past Samuel's ear. He felt it go. He felt the small hot wind of it against his jaw. Dutch went down. He went down without a sound, the way a big man goes down when he has been hit dead center in the back. He folded at the knees, and he sat down hard on the porch boards, and then he lay down slow, and the rifle he had been holding slid out of his hands and across the porch. Samuel turned. "Dutch." "Boss?" "Dutch, no, no, no." "Boss, it come from the grass. West side. Got a man in the grass, boss." On the porch, Lillian had not moved. She was staring west at the grass, the way a woman stares at a thing she has known was coming her whole life. "Samuel," she said. "It's Hollis." Samuel Hale turned his head toward the grass. "Hollis. The man who left last night," Lillian said. "Samuel. He did not go home to his babies." Samuel stood up off Dutch. He walked to the porch rail. He picked up Dutch's rifle. He looked west into the grass and he waited. A head came up. Hollis. Samuel Hale had been a ranch boss for 11 years, and before that he had been a cowhand for 6. And before that he had been a boy who shot rabbits for his mother's stew pot. And Samuel Hale put one bullet through the tall grass at a range of 200 yards, and he did not miss. The grass went still. Samuel lowered the rifle. He turned around. He knelt down beside Dutch. Dutch was still breathing, but there was a red spreading under him that Samuel had seen before on other men, and he did not need a doctor to tell him what it meant. "Dutch." "Boss, tell me you got him." "I got him, Dutch." "In the grass." "In the grass. You were right. West side." "Good. Dutch, stay with me. You stay with me. Lillian, get a cloth. Get a cloth, Lillian, now." "Boss." "Dutch." "Boss. Listen. Dutch. Your mama. Back in 72. She asked me to look after you." "Dutch, don't." "I did my best, boss." "Dutch. Tell Miss Lillian. Tell her she was. Tell her she was the answer." And Dutch closed his eyes, and he smiled a little, the small crooked smile of a man who has just put down a thing he has been carrying a long way, and then he did not open them again. Samuel Hale knelt on his porch beside the man who had taught him how to sit a horse, and how to read a brand, and how to hold a rifle without flinching, and he did not weep, because there was not time to weep. He set Dutch's hand down gentle on Dutch's chest. He stood up. He walked down the porch steps. Lillian came down behind him. "Samuel, Samuel, you told me to stay on the porch. I know what I told you." "Samuel, come on." She came on. At the gate, Garrett was on the ground. Marshal Tate had put him on the ground. His right hand was wrapped in a bandana that was already red through. Sheriff Coe had not moved from his saddle, and would not because Marshal Tate's pistol was resting easy on the pommel of Tate's saddle and pointed in the general direction of Sheriff Coe's belt buckle. Samuel stopped 3 feet from Garrett. Garrett looked up at him. Then Garrett's eyes went past Samuel to Lillian, and Garrett smiled the thin, cold smile of a man who has one card left in his hand and has been saving it. "Lillian." "James." "Come here, darlin'." Samuel stepped between them. "Mr. Hale, I am speaking to my fiancée." "You are speaking to the woman I am marryin'. Lillian, you hear that? Lillian, darlin', step around him. Step around him and let me look at you. Let me look at you the way I used to look at you. You remember how I used to look at you, don't you, darlin'? In your daddy's parlor? In my daddy's study? In the barn? Lillian, you remember the barn." Samuel's hand went to his pistol. "Samuel." Lillian's voice. "Samuel, don't." Lillian, "Don't, Samuel. Step aside." Lillian, "Step aside. I will say this to him. I have been waiting 6 years to say this to him. Step aside." Samuel stepped aside. Lillian Voss walked around her husband-to-be, and she stood in front of the man who had owned her for 6 years, and she did not tremble, and she did not weep, and she looked down at him on the ground where he sat bleeding, and she said every word of it in a voice so quiet that Marshall Tate had to lean forward in his saddle to catch it. James Garrett. "Lillian, darlin', you do not speak. You listen. I have done your listenin' for 6 years. You do your own now." His mouth closed. "I was 16 when my daddy sold me to your daddy for a herd of cattle. I did not know then what sold meant. I learned. I learned in your daddy's parlor. I learned in your daddy's study. I learned in the barn." James. "Yes, I remember the barn, and I remember every mornin' after the barn, when I could not lift my arm to button my own dress, and I remember your mama lookin' at the bruise on my jaw over the breakfast table and passin' me the jam. I remember every single thing, James. I remember better than you do." Garrett's face had gone white. "I kept your daddy's books for 2 years because he could not see the numbers, and you could not read men, and you thought a girl was safe, James. You thought a girl was a thing you could leave in a room with a ledger book, and she would not see what was in it. You were wrong. I saw every judge. I saw every sheriff. I saw the land agent in Tascosa. I saw the assayer in Canadian. I saw the preacher in Dalhart that your daddy paid off after the girl who ran from you in '84 drowned in the Canadian River. I saw her name James. I saw what your daddy paid to have her name taken out of the courthouse record. I saw all of it, and I copied it every line into a second book, and I took that book with me when I walked out of your house, and I gave it to a woman in Mobeetie, and the woman in Mobeetie has been told James that if I do not come back for it in 30 days, she is to take it to a federal marshal and say my name." Garrett's mouth opened. "Oh, God. That is the first time you have said his name, James, that I have ever heard you say it in 6 years." Lillian. Marshall Tate. "Ma'am. You are a federal officer." "I am, ma'am. I am handing you that book today. By sundown. A widow named Esther Willoughby above the dry goods in Mobeetie. She is expecting you. Say my name to her, and she will put it in your hand. Ma'am, that book is the last thing I own in the world that was taken from me, Marshall, and I am giving it to the United States government. I am giving it to you. I want every name in it brought to trial. I want Colonel Garrett in a federal courtroom. I want James Garrett in a federal courtroom. I want every judge and every sheriff and every land agent who took $1 of Garrett money to stand in front of 12 honest men and say what they did. Do you hear me, Marshall?" "I hear you, ma'am." She turned back to Garrett. "Now, James." "Lillian. Now you may say what you were going to say to me." He did not say anything. She knelt down, slowly, on both knees in Samuel's mother's blue Sunday dress in the dirt of Samuel's yard, 3 feet from the man who had owned her. She looked him dead in the eye. "I am not afraid of you, James Garrett." And then she stood up, and she brushed the dust off her skirt with the flat of her hand, and she walked back to Samuel Hale, and she took his arm, and she did not look behind her as Marshall Tate pulled James Garrett to his feet and put the irons on him. At the porch, she stopped. She looked up at Samuel. "Dutch." "He's gone, Lillian." "Oh, Samuel. He said something to tell you." "What did he say, Samuel?" "He said you were the answer." And there on the porch steps, with the 10 riders of James Garrett being disarmed one by one in the yard behind them, and with Sheriff Coe of Potter County being walked down off his horse in irons of his own, and with the body of a hand named Hollis cooling in the grass 200 yards west, Lillian Voss finally, after 3 days of walking and 6 years of not put her forehead against Samuel Hale's chest and wept. He held her. He held her a long time. He did not speak. He did not need to. Above them, the clock in the parlor that had been ticking for 41 years ticked on, but it was not any more ticking for one man alone. They buried Dutch on a Tuesday morning on a rise of ground east of the main house, under a pecan tree Samuel's father had planted the year Samuel was born. Samuel dug the grave himself. He would not let any of the hands touch a shovel. He worked through the dawn and into the heat of the morning. And when Lillian came out with coffee, he did not stop. And when she said his name, he only shook his head, because a man does not stop digging a grave for the man who taught him how to be a man. And she understood, and she set the coffee on the ground and she went back inside. At noon she came out again in her Sunday dress. The 15 remaining hands stood in a half circle around the grave hats in their hands. Samuel stood at the head. Lillian stood beside him. There was no preacher. There had not been time to fetch one, and Samuel had said he did not want one. He had said Dutch had not been a church-going man, and he would not have Dutch put in the ground by a stranger speaking over him out of a book Dutch had never read. Samuel spoke instead. Dutch. The hands lifted their heads. Dutch Armstrong come to work for my daddy in the spring of '68. He was not yet 30 years old. He stayed 20 years. He buried my mama in '72. He buried my daddy in '78. He stayed on with a boy of 23 because he had promised my mama he would, and Dutch Armstrong did not break a promise to a woman livin' or dead. He taught me to ride. He taught me to shoot. He taught me not to draw on a man unless I meant to kill him. And he taught me the harder thing, which was to not kill a man I could have. He stood at my gate last Friday with a rifle across his knees, and he did not put it down till he was dead, because a woman in my house had asked him to keep her safe. And Dutch Armstrong did not say no to a woman askin'. Samuel's voice did not break. I do not have words for him. I have had 2 days to find him, and I have not. I will only say this. Dutch Armstrong was my father after my father, and my mother after my mother, and my brother, all the years between. And there is not a day I will draw breath on this land that I will not owe him for it. Amen. The hand said amen. Lillian said amen. Samuel picked up the shovel. He filled the grave himself too. That evening, after the hands had gone back to the bunkhouse and the sun had dropped red behind the west pasture, Samuel Hale sat on his porch in his father's chair, and Lillian sat on the step at his feet, and neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Lillian said, Samuel. Ma'am? Marshal Tate came by this afternoon. I saw him ride in. I could not make myself come down. I know. I sat with him in the kitchen. What did he say? He said he had the book. He said a federal grand jury is being called in Fort Smith for the first week of June. He said Colonel Garrett was taken into custody in Amarillo last night. He said James Garrett will be tried on 3 counts of murder and 4 of fraud, and the Lord knows how many of conspiracy, and that the earliest he will see the outside of a federal penitentiary, if he is not hanged first, is the year 1911. Samuel nodded slowly. He also said something else, Samuel. Tell me. He said there is a reward for information leading to the conviction of James Garrett. A stand-in reward posted 2 years ago by the railroad he defrauded in '85. $5,000. $5,000. He said it is mine. He said no federal officer will contest it. He said the book is the information, and I am the one who brought it. Lillian. Samuel. That is more money than some men see in a lifetime. I know it. What will you do with it? She turned around on the step. She looked up at him. I will put it in a bank in Mobeetie. In my own name. Lillian Voss. Lillian. Not Lillian Hale. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Lillian Voss. I have never had $1 in a bank in my own name, Samuel. My daddy had my wages till I was 16. James Garrett had 'em after that. I have been a woman on this earth for 31 years, and I have never held $1 that was mine. I am going to hold 5,000 of them. And then Samuel Hale, and then I am going to decide what I do next. Samuel did not answer for a moment. Then he said, All right, Lillian. All right. All right, your money, your name, your bank, you're decidin'. She looked at him a long time. Samuel. Ma'am. The night before all this, in your kitchen, when you asked me to marry you. I remember. I said yes. I remember that too. I meant it. I mean it now. But I am going to ask you, Samuel, for a thing I did not know how to ask you for that night, and you are going to tell me yes or no, and I will honor whichever one you say. Ask me. I want a year. A year. A year, Samuel. A year in my own room. A year with my own money. A year on this ranch as a woman who is not a wife, and is not a cook, and is not a fiancée. A year to be Lillian Voss, in a place where a man has not decided who she is before she wakes up. And at the end of that year, Samuel, if I am still the soul you want up your road, you ask me again. And I will answer you again. And the answer will be real, Samuel, because it will have been a year of me choosing to answer it, and not a year of me running toward a porch. Samuel was quiet a long time. Lillian. Samuel, you want a year. I want a year. Same room you got now. Same room. Same wage I've been paying you. Not a wage, Samuel. I will not take wages anymore. I will cook because I love to cook, and I will keep the house because I love the house. I will live here as a guest. If you ask me for a chore, I will do it because I am a woman who helps, not because I am a woman who is paid. And the room off the kitchen, I will take a room upstairs if you will let me. The one with the blue curtains. Because I sat in that room one night with the door bolted and I learned a thing in that room. What thing? That a door is only worth having a bolt on it if there is a man on the other side of it who would honor the bolt. And I have been on this ranch 6 weeks, Samuel, and you have not once put a hand on the handle of my door. Not once. And I would like for a year to sleep in a room with a bolt I do not feel I have to throw. Samuel did not speak for a while. When he did, his voice was not quite steady. Lillian Voss? Samuel, you can have a year. You can have 10 years. You can have this ranch if you want it, and me along with it or not, as suits you. The blue room is yours. It has been yours since the first night you set foot in it, and I was a fool not to offer it then. Samuel, I will court you, Lillian. I will court you in my own house for a year. I will take you to supper in my own dining room like a stranger, and I will knock on your door like a caller, and I will sit across a parlor from you like a man with hopes, and I will not touch your hand without your leave. Samuel, and at the end of the year, if you say no, I will not ask you why. I will put you on the train to wherever you want to go with your $5,000 and my blessing, and I will live out my days on this porch, and I will count them well spent for the year I had. Samuel Hale, ma'am, you are going to make me cry on a Tuesday, and I have not cried on a Tuesday in 6 years. I'm sorry, ma'am. Don't be sorry. She stood. She stepped up onto the porch. She laid her hand flat and steady against his cheek the way a woman lays her hand on a cheek when she has decided a thing inside herself that she is not yet ready to say out loud. Then she went into the house, and he heard her go up the stairs, and he heard her open the door of the blue room, and he heard her close it, and he heard a moment later the small clean sound of a bolt not being thrown. Samuel Hale sat on his porch in his father's chair, and for the first time in 11 years, he did not feel alone in his own house. The year went by. She kept her word. He kept his. She took the blue room upstairs, and she put her $5,000 in a bank in Mobiti in the name of Lillian Voss, and she went into town once a month to see it entered in the book, and she came home every time and told Samuel the balance over supper, because she had promised herself that she would say the number out loud to a man every month for as long as she lived to remind herself it was hers. She cooked. She did not take a wage. She read Samuel's mother's old cookbook cover to cover, and she taught herself to make pies his mother had made, and the first pie she set on the table in front of him, a peach pie from his mother's receipt. Samuel Hale ate one bite and put his fork down and could not eat for a long minute, and Lillian did not say a word. She only refilled his coffee and waited for him to find his way back. In February, Marshal Tate came and took her to Fort Smith. She stood in a federal courtroom for 4 days. She said every name in the ledger book in a voice steady enough that the clerk did not ask her to repeat a word. Colonel Garrett was sentenced to 30 years. James Garrett was sentenced to hang. He was hanged on the 11th of March, 1892, in the yard of the federal courthouse in Fort Smith. And Lillian Voss did not go and watch it, because she had decided that the day James Garrett died would not be a day that she spent looking at him. She came home on their train. Samuel met her at the Mobiti station. He did not embrace her. He tipped his hat. He took her bag. In the buggy on the ride home, she said, "Samuel." Ma'am? He is dead. I know it. I did not go. I know that too. I thought I would feel different. How do you feel? She considered. Tired, Samuel. I feel tired. And I feel like a woman who has done a thing she had to do and does not have to do it again. That's a good feeling, Lillian. Is it? It's the feeling a body gets when she has finished a job. I've been watching men finish jobs my whole life. It looks just like that. She smiled a little for the first time in 4 days. Samuel Hale. Ma'am, I am 3 months into my year. I know. 9 to go. I know. You have not asked me a single question since I come back. I ain't gonna ask you one, Lillian, not for 9 months. Samuel. 9 months, Lillian. And he did not ask her one. Spring came. She planted a garden on the south side of the house where his mother's garden had been. Summer came. She put up 40 jars of peaches and 80 of tomatoes, and she lined them on the pantry shelf that had been gray with dust the first night she walked in. And every time she walked past it, she touched one jar for luck. Fall came. She rode out one morning to the north pasture with Samuel on a sorrel mare he had picked for her himself, and she sat a horse as well as any man he had, and she did not say so. But she liked the feeling of a horse under her because she had not been on one since she was 14 years old, and her daddy sold the last of hers to pay a debt. Winter came. They sat by the fire in the parlor most evenings. He read to her from the paper. She mended. The clock on the mantel ticked, and she had learned by then to hear it as a sound that belonged in a house full of people, not an empty one. On the 1st of March, 1893, Lillian Voss came down to breakfast, and she laid a hand on Samuel Hale's shoulder at the kitchen table, and he looked up. Samuel? Ma'am? It has been a year. He set his coffee down. Lillian, you have not asked me a question. I have not. I am asking you to ask me now. Samuel Hale stood up from his kitchen table. He took off his hat, which he had been about to put on. He set it down on the chair. He came around the table to her, and he stood in front of her, and he did not take her hand because he had promised her a year, and he would not touch her hand without her leave, even on the first day past the year. Lillian Voss. Samuel Hale. Will you be my wife? She put her hand in his. Yes, Samuel. Yes. Yes, today. Tomorrow. Next Sunday. Whenever the preacher can be fetched. Yes. He did not kiss her. Not yet. He put his arms around her slow, and she put her arms around him, and they stood like that in the kitchen that had been empty for 11 years, and was not empty anymore, and when she lifted her face to his, she was the one who kissed him. They were married on the 15th of March, 1893, in the parlor of the main house, by a circuit preacher out of Mobeetie. 15 ranch hands stood for witnesses. The widow Esther Willoughby came out from town and cried through the whole ceremony. Marshal Elias Tate rode in from Fort Smith and gave the bride away because she had asked him to, and because he had said it would be the honor of his career. Lillian wore the blue Sunday dress that had belonged to Samuel's mother. She kept the name Voss on the bank book in Mobeetie, and she added the name Hale on the deed of the ranch, because Samuel signed half of it over to her on the morning of the wedding, and she did not refuse it, because she had learned in a year that a gift from a man who does not expect a thing back is not the same as a price paid by a man who expects everything. They had a daughter in the winter of 1894. They named her Ruth after Samuel's mother. They had a son in the spring of 1896. They named him Dutch. Samuel Hale lived to be 81 years old, and he died in his own bed in the summer of 1939, with his wife of 46 years holding his hand, and his last words, which she would tell their grandchildren 100 times before her own death in 1948, were these. Lillian, I heard every word. Wealth is not measured in 40,000 acres, and it is not measured in 3,000 head of cattle, and it is not measured in a mansion with 11 empty bedrooms. Wealth is measured in the sound of a woman humming in a kitchen that had forgotten the sound of humming. Wealth is measured in a prayer whispered in the dark by a soul who believed she was not being heard. Wealth is measured in a bolt that does not need to be thrown, and a year that does not need to be shortened, and a hand that is given not taken. Samuel Hale had been the richest man in Wheeler County the night he threw a crystal tumbler against a stone hearth. He did not know it then. He knew it the night a runaway cook knelt beside his bed in the dark and prayed a prayer she thought he did not hear. He heard every word, and he spent the rest of his life answering it.